Hey guys, Forex here, hope you're all well. What you're looking at in front of you is the ZX Spectrum again, and yep, it's still fully working. Now in this video I'm going to carry out some mods that I want to do to the ZX Spectrum, so if you stick around I'll crack on with those. Now there's 4 mods I want to carry out on this ZX Spectrum. The first one is external, but the rest of them are internal. Now the first mod is, if you own a ZX Spectrum, you'll know one of its flaws is there is no power button. You have to turn these on at the mains plug basically, and it can be very annoying, and pretty much every ZX Spectrum is like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some spare leads and switches I have, and I'm going to create an external switch. Now the second mod I'm going to do is internal. Inside the ZX Spectrum, the audio carrier is muxed in with the composite video signal and it shouldn't be there. So that's the second mod I'm going to do, is I'm going to disable that. The third mod I'm going to be doing is by a really excellent YouTuber. He doesn't make many videos anymore, but you know, hope he comes back one day because his videos are brilliant. And his name is JoulesperCoulomb. That's not his real name. If you have an electrical background, you'll know what JoulesperCoulomb means. But he created a circuit where you can improve the composite video signal. And so I'm going to be carrying out that mod. And the final mod I'm going to be doing is by ByteDelight's, and this is a stereo mod for the ZX Spectrum. So yeah, if you stick around, I'll crack on with those mods. Now the first thing I want to take care of is the power input. I want to make a switch. But first I want to show you the actual barrel input for the ZX Spectrum. If we take a look, we can actually see it's center negative. Now we call this evil when it comes to power supplies. Now the reason we do this is because most things that have barrel jacks are center positive. And the reason we call this evil is because if you plug this into your system, whatever it is, and it doesn't have reverse polarity protection, it's going to cause some problems. So yeah, we just need to be aware of that when we make the switch. Now to make this switch, I've got some parts. I'm one of those people that I tend not to throw things away unless I know I'm never going to use it again. If I can recycle a switch, I'll reuse it, and that's what I've done here. I've got this switch out of an old lamp that I was throwing away, and it's just an on-off switch for a lamp. These 2 parts came from when I built my retro bright box. The UV lights were connected to a connector like this. There's still one on it that I used to power it, but I've got a spare one, and it's just a barrel input, and then I've got a barrel input with a splitter, and now luckily these will fit the Spectrum. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these down, I'll solder them, I'll put some heat shrink on there, and we should have a nice on-off switch for the ZX Spectrum. So yeah, I'll get preparing these and then I'll show you how you make the switch. What I want to do now is make sure this red wire is the center of the barrel. You should never assume it is. So I've just got my multimeter on continuity, and as you can hear, it's beeping. So it's center positive on this barrel jack. So remember, we need to wire it opposite. So in our case, the black wire is going to be our positive and the red wire is going to be our negative. And that's why you should always check this. Never assume, guys, because you know you'll do it and then one day you'll come a gutser as Dave Jones would say, and then you'll be kicking yourself. So yeah, never assume the red wire is center positive, always check it. Now I worked out the polarity of the barrel jacks, and what I can do now is wire in a switch. So I'll go ahead and do that and then come back and show you once it's done. What I want to do before I solder the wires to the switch is I want to show you where I'm up to. Now what you've got to remember is this is reversed here. Remember the positive is the negative wire and the negative wire is the positive. Now you can see I'm going to be installing the switch on the positive wire. Now you may be asking, why is that? Whenever you install a switch, you want to install it on the positive. The reason for that is you never want to have a floating ground in a circuit, and that's why you always install a switch on the positive. So yeah, I'll go ahead and finish this off and then show you what it looks like afterwards. Let's test out the switch before we test the Spectrum, because I don't want to blow the Spectrum off. But yeah, as you can see, we've got the Spectrum barrel jack going in, we've got the switch, and we've got our barrel jack coming out. So let's power on, and there we go, we've got 12 volts. So yeah, let's hook this up to the ZX Spectrum, and now we can power it on and off without powering it from the plug socket. Let's test the switch. Let's power on. We've got power, and there we go. So yeah, I can switch the system on and off now without having to go into the actual plug socket. So yeah, that's one mod down, 3 to go. Now the rest of the mods are actually inside the ZX Spectrum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this apart and then start working on the motherboard. Now I'm not going to show you how to get inside one of these, I've already done it 3 times. I'll just be going over old ground. So yeah, next time you'll see this, the motherboard will be on the bench. Now the first mod I want to perform is on this capacitor just here, capacitor C31. Now the reason for that is this couples the audio carrier into the composite video signal. Now it shouldn't be there, you shouldn't couple audio into a video signal, composite video signal. So what I want to do is rewire this capacitor and send it to the emitter of transistor 2. So that will disable it going to the composite video, the audio carrier, but it will still allow the audio to go to the RF modulator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suck out this capacitor and I'm going to rewire it in, and once I've done, I'll show you that. Hopefully you can see that's capacitor C31 removed. What I'll do now is I'll wire it in and then show you what it looks like. As you can see, it's capacitor C31 rewired. Now it goes from the audio coupling side into TR2 as emitter. Now what this does is it disables it going to the composite video signal, which it shouldn't, but it re-enables it going back to the RF modulator. So yeah, that's the second one done, 2 more to go. Now what I've done now is I've hooked up the ZX Spectrum through composite video, and hopefully you can see the ghosting you get with a ZX Spectrum +2 when you hook it up through composite video. Now what I'm going to do is add a LC filter on the TA2000 chip, and that should improve the ghosting. Now this was originally designed by a guy called JoulesperCoulomb, like I mentioned at the start of the video. That's not his real name, but what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description below to that video where he worked out the values for the LC filter, and yeah, I'll get fitting the LC filter onto this TA2000. Now, what JoulesperCoulomb called for in his LC filter circuit was an 87 picofarad capacitor. I don't have an 87 picofarad capacitor, so I've done the next best thing. So here's the 15 microhenry inductor. I have a 68 picofarad capacitor and a 20 picofarad capacitor. Now if I put those in parallel, that will make an 88 picofarad, and that's pretty damn close to the 87 that was called for. So what I'll do is I'll get these all put together and then show you what it looks like, and then we'll install it onto that TA2000 video chip. And there's my LC filter all wired up. Now what a lot of people do is they dead bug it on top of the chip. What I like to do is put it on the back side. It's just out of the way, then you don't see it. But yeah, I'll get installing this and then we'll see if it makes any difference to that composite video signal. And as you can see, that's the LC filter installed. So let's look everything up and give it a test. Did it work? Well, let's have a look. Yep, I'd say that picture has improved. So yeah, that's 3 down, 1 to go. Now the final mod I want to install is ByteDelight's fantastic stereo upgrade for the ZX Spectrum Plus 1 to 8 models. So what I'm going to do is first I need to prep the AY chip, so I'll go ahead and do that. And then come back and show you what it looks like afterwards. Sorry about the noise in the background, one of my neighbours is installing a new fence. But what I've done is I've prepped the first 6 legs of the AY chip. So what I'll do now is I'll get the stereo mod soldered on there. That's the stereo mod soldered to the AY chip. What I need to do now is solder the 2 wires to the ULA. So I'll do that and then come back. That's both those wires soldered to pin 34 and 35 of the ULA. What I need to do now is take the output jack. I need to make a hole just here, and then I can finish off the mod. So I'll go ahead and do that and then come back. And that's the output jack installed. Should get stereo out of that now. Everything's installed, everything looks good. What I can do is get this Spectrum back together, and then what I need to do is modify my Scart so it will have left and right audio input. So I'll go ahead and do that and then come back. The next thing I need to do is I need a way of sending stereo to the Scart. So what I've done is I've got myself a 3.5mm stereo jack, and it's got, you know, a couple of things on the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lob these 2 off, and then I can wire those into the left and right channel of the Scart input. And then all I have to do is plug this into the stereo output, and then I'll have stereo coming from my ZX Spectrum Plus 2. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. If we take a look at the Scart, what we can see is the left and right are tied together. So here's the right audio input, here's the left audio input, here's the audio coming in on this grey wire, and as you can see, what they've done is they've tied the left and right together, and that will give us a mono input. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this link here. I'm going to remove this grey wire because obviously it's not needed there anymore, and I'm going to wire the right and left in coming from this input. What I've done is I've removed the mono, here's the mono output from the input of the RGB Scart. It's not needed anymore because it's going to be wired in for stereo at the head of the Scart. I've removed the mono wire and I've separated the two left and right channels. So what I'll do now is I'll get this all wired in and then show you what it looks like afterwards. And that's the 3.5mm audio output all wired in. It's my right channel, my ground, and left channel. So let's get the Scart back together and we can give it a test. We're all back together. Now just a quick info guys, if you want to see me install the ByteDelight's stereo mod more in depth, I do have a video on YouTube where you can watch that, and it shows you how to do it more in depth. What I'll do is I'll put a link to that video below. But yeah, as you can see, we're all back together. So let's power on. Winner, winner. So yeah, there we go, we're on. Now if we take a look at the install manual, you can actually set up the actual stereo mod to output in different channels in different ways. Now you can set it up for Western Europe and you just change the jumpers, and you can set it up for Eastern Europe, and again you just change the jumpers. Now I'm in Western Europe, so I've got it set to the Western Europe settings, and it was already set like that. But if you're like in Russia, which had a variant of the Spectrum, you set it up as Eastern Europe. But yeah, I'm in the West, I set it up as a Western Europe. Now if I turn to the back, what we can see is ByteDelight has written a little bit of code, and you can see it here. Now what this does is it tests the channels, the left right channels, to see if you've got separation and stereo. Now as you can see, I've got my RGB Scart plugged in. I've got the now stereo going into the ByteDelight's mod, stereo mod. Now I've saved that little basic program to tape, just so I can load it and don't have to type it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load that now, and I don't know if you can hear that. I've got a sound when I press the key, so that's working, so that's a good sign. Now I'm just going to type load, and we'll load that basic program, that ByteDelight, add in his install manual. Just save me time, I don't have to keep typing it out. And there we go, that should have loaded. Stop the tape, and as you can see, there it is, just a simple basic program. Now you can hear that, so yeah, we know the beeping's working. Now what we should get, we're setting up for Western Europe, so we should get right channel, center, which is basically both, left channel, and then center again. So what I'm looking for is right, center, left, center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this, and hopefully we get that separation. Yeah, I can hear that. That's right. It's going right, center, left, center. Right, center, left, center. Yeah, that's right. I'll put my camera underneath. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. So yeah, just stop that because it's getting a bit annoying now. So yeah, that seems to be a successful install. So what I'll do now is I'll go and get my divMMC Future, and we'll run a game on this, and we'll see what it's like listening to stereo sound coming from a ZX Spectrum Plus 2. Got my divMMC Future plugged in. Let's power on. I'm loving the power switch, by the way. As you can see, it's booting. Let's press the menu button and let's load Slightly Magic. It's a class tune. And there it is, just there. Hopefully a bit stereo. Oh yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds really good. What I'll do is I'll put my camera under the thing again, and hopefully you'll pick it up, the stereo separation. So yeah, there you go guys. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one. It sounds absolutely amazing. Catch you next time, guys.